Hi everyone, it's Miss Costa here, and in this video I'm going to walk you through how to simplify with surds. Okay, so in this question I'm being asked to write the root of 20 in the form k root 5, where k is an integer. Now all this essentially is asking me to do is to simplify the surd. Remember, a surd is just anything expressed in the square root form that won't simplify further. So for instance, the square root of 25 isn't a surd because we can write it as 5. So surds are things that are irrational numbers, i.e. if we typed the square root of 5 into our calculator, we'd get a long decimal. So what I want to do first is figure out how I could write the root of 20 more simply. So all I need to do is think to myself, what numbers multiply to make 20? Now I could say 10 and 2, I could say 20 and 1, but ideally what I'm looking for in order to simplify a surd is a square number inside of it. So let's just remind ourselves of the first few square numbers. Now obviously 1 is a square number, but it's not going to help us, so we start with 4, 9, 16, 25, 49 and so on. Okay, so do any of these numbers fit into 20? Yes, I know that 4 times by 5 gives me 20. So the square root of 20 can also be written as the square root of 4 times by 5, because 4 times 5 makes 20. Anything inside the little square root, as long as it multiplies to make the original number, you can express it however you like. So I could also express this as 10 times 2 or 20 times 1. They're all equivalent, but I'm looking for something that has the square number in it. So another way I can write this is just break up the surd. So this is also equivalent. So all three of these ways of writing the square root of 20 are equivalent. They mean the same thing, but it's sometimes a little bit easier to break up the surd so that you can deal with it a little bit better. So once I've broken it up, I know that the square root of 4, because square root of 4 is a square number, it's going to have a square root. The square root of 4 is 2. So I could just write this as 2 times by the square root of 5 and then simplify it to 2 root 5. And that is how I would simplify this. Now remember that an integer is just a whole number, so don't let this wording confuse you. And that's essentially it. So let's have a go at another one just to see if we can embed what we've just learned. So I'm being asked to write the square root of 72 in the form k root 2, where k is an integer. Remember, integer is just whole number, and when I'm dealing with surds, to simplify them, I'm always looking for a square number. So let's just write them up again. 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, and so on. Okay, so how could I write 72? I could write it as, 72 times 1. I could write it as 36 times 2. I could write it as a million things, but I'm looking for a square number. So there are a few ways I could attack this, because the square root of 72 I could write as 36 times by 2, or I could write it as 8 times 9, because 8 times 9 is also 72. So we'll do one at a time. So 36 is a square number, which is why I chose it, and 36 times 2 makes 72. So I could split that up into root 36 times by root 2. And what's the square root of 36? It is 6. So that would be 6 times root 2, which in essence is just 6 root 2. Okay, if I'd done it the other way, so using root 8 times root 9, that would be root 8 times root 9. What's the square root of 9? That is 3. So that would become 3 root 8. And this is why, another tip, always look for the largest possible square number you can get, because it's going to make your life so much easier and save so much time. So that's 3 root 8, but I can simplify root 8 even further. That's not fully simplified. So I would need to say, okay, so think of square numbers that make 8. Well, I could write that as 4 times 2. So that would become 3 times root 4 times root 2. And what's the root of 4? That's 2. So that would become 6 root 2. So obviously I have two options I can take, but because I chose to go with the largest square number, I made my life a lot easier. So obviously you can write that some numbers are going to have lots of factors, but you're always trying to get the largest factor that is a square root, and that will save you so much time and make life a lot easier. So hopefully that makes sense. And now let's have a go at some of these practice questions. So just pause the video. Hopefully you've paused it. I'm just going to continue. So pause it. And now let's go through the answers. So simplify the following. Okay, remember I am looking for square numbers, so I'm just going to write them up again. 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64. If you didn't know your square numbers, hopefully me repeating them is going to embed them into your brain so that you know them forevermore. So square root of 48, I'm looking for a large square number that can fit into this. So 16 times by 3 would get me there. And then how else could I write that? I could write that as the square root of 16 times by square root of 3. And what is the square root of 16? That is 4. So that would be 4 root 3. Then I've got the square root of 32. Okay, the largest square number that would fit into this would once again be 16. I could write that as 16 times 2. Split it up into square root of 16 times square root of 2. And the square root of 16 once again is 4. So that would be 4 root 2. Let's try again with root 56. So what is the largest square number that fits into this? Well, we've got 9. My brain has frozen. So if you have a brain freeze, then what you need to do is break it down. So you know you're looking for a square number. 9 does not fit into 56, but 4 does. So just divide it by 4. 56 divided by 4 is 14. So I know that I could write 14 times by 4. Break it up into two little surds. So that would be square root of 14 times by square root of 4. What's the square root of 4? 2. So that would be the square root of 14. Finally, I've got the square root of 150. Okay, so I know that 25 is going to fit into it. And that's going to be the largest square number that I could do. So 150 divided by 25 is 6. So you can do 25 times by 6. Split them up. So the square root of 25 times by the square root of 6. And the square root of 25 is 5. And square root of 6 you can't simplify any further. So obviously I recognise these like root 3, root 2, root 14, root 6. I know that they're not going to simplify further. You might not recognise that at the beginning, so just try and simplify it and you'll realise that you can't because no square numbers fit into it. And then you know you've simplified it essentially. If no square numbers can fit into the surd, it cannot be simplified. And that's the first set. So now let's go and do some slightly trickier ones. So here we've got, right, 3 root 8 in the form k root 2. So they've already given you the surd and they're asking you to simplify it. Don't be put off by words like this in the form where k is an integer. Remember, integer just means whole number. And they're just asking you to simplify it even further. So 3 root 8 means 3 times by root 8. You know you want to get it in the form root 2. So actually, when they give you a question like this, they're making your life so much easier because they know that you're going to have to write it as 3 times by 2 times by something. And 2 times by what gives you 8? Well, 2 times 4. So that would be 3 times root 2 times by root 4. And what's root 4? Root 4 is just 2. What's 3 times 2? 6. So you'd end up with 6 root 2 for that one. And once again, we're being asked to write 5 root 20 in the form k root 5. So using that neat little trick I just showed you, we've got 5 times by root 20. And you know that you want to express it in the form of root 5. So you know it's going to be 5 times by something. Well, 5 times what gives you 20? 5 times 4. So you could write that as 5 times root 5 times root 4. What's root 4? Root 4 is 2. So that would be 5 times root 5 times by 2. 5 times 2 is 10. So your final answer would be 10 root 5. So these hopefully you see these are just a natural progression of before. It's just you've got a number in front of the third. So once again, let's have a go at these questions. I am just going to let you pause. And now we're back. So if you didn't pause, then, well, shame on you. So simplify the following. 3 root 18. I know that is going to be 3 times root 18. Remember the square numbers. You've got 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49. Hopefully these are just rolling off your tongue by now. 3 times root 18. Okay, so what's the largest square number that fits into 18? That's 9. So I can write that as 9 times by 2, which I could then write as root 9 times root 2. And then what's root 9? Well, root 9 is, why did I go in 2 directions? Let's just stick to 1 direction. Root 9 is 3. So simplify that fully. Why does it do that? So simplify it fully. 3 times 3 is 9 and root 2. Okay, so 9 root 2. Let's try it for the next one. 5 times by root 32. So what's the largest thing that would fit into root 32? Well, 16. So I'd write that as 5 times by 16 times 2. I can split that up. So 5 times root 16 times by root 2. And once again, square root of 16 is 4. So 5 times 4 times root 2 would become 20 root 2. So that would be my answer there. And next I've got 6 root 60. So I should have done 6 times root 60. Remember, I'm doing all of the steps. Once you get really good at this, you are maybe going to skip a few. You're going to recognize certain square numbers and stuff like that. I'm just showing you everything just in case. So what's the largest square number that would fit into 60? That's a good question. 25. Okay, so 60 divided by 4 is 25. So 6 times by 25 times 4, split that up, would become 6 times root 25 times root 4. No, not 25, sorry, 15. Oh my gosh, sorry, my brain. Okay, so 15 times 4. So that would be 6 times root 15 times by root 4. So that would be 6 times root 15 times by 2. 6 times 2 is 12, so that would be 12 root 15. So 12 root 15. And the final one. So I've got 5 root 75. I think I was looking here when I was thinking about 25. So 25 goes into 75 3 times. So I'm going to write that as 5 times by 25 times 3. I can split that up. So it's 5 times root 25 times root 3. And then I know that the square root of 25 is 5. So that would be 5 times 5 times root 3. 5 times 5 is 25. And I'm left with 25 root 3. So hopefully you got those all right. If not, let me know where you stumbled and I will make like a correction explanation video to help you. But yeah, that's it for now. Thank you for watching.